The agenda in the summer with NAM Kiwanuka is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Online connectivity has been a lifeline during the pandemic, but many in this province are without broadband. I'm Nam Kiwanuka, and tonight on the agenda in the summer, we're exploring what's needed to get all of Ontario online. For work and for school, access to broadband is essential. But for those in the rural and northern parts of the province, it's not always available. Finding solutions was urgent before, and the pandemic has only amplified that. With us now for more in Caledon, Ontario, Alan Thompson, Mayor of the town of Caledon and Chair of ROMA, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association. In Guelph, Ontario, Helen Hambley, Professor of the University of Guelph School of Environmental Design and Rural Development and Project Leader of Regional and Rural Broadband. And in Richmond Hill, Ontario, Reza Rajabion, Research Fellow at Ryerson University Ted Rogers School of Information Technology Management and a telecom strategy expert working on internet infrastructure development. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I hope you're enjoying your summer, but we're going to put you to work. Next week, in partnership with AMO, the Association of Municipalities in Ontario, we'll be looking at key municipal issues from across Ontario. Today, we're examining another issue that has a huge impact on the province's municipalities, broadband. Helen, I'd like to start with you. What exactly does the term broadband refer to?
Well, in the simplest definition, let's just think of it as higher speed internet. And of course, Canada has an aspirational target for what that means for all Canadians, and that by 2030, 90% of the country will have speeds of 50 megabits per second down and 10 megabits per second up, which is enough to do streaming, all the ordinary day-to-day tasks that we use in our interface with the internet. And essentially, we have this speed target. But as you've just said, many Canadians do not have that kind of access right now. It still would be a dream for many rural areas in particular.
You know, when I think it was, if someone was to hear that people in Canada have issues accessing broadband, it might surprise them, because when you think of Canada, we're a developed country. We have lots of things that are accessible to us. Why is this still an issue in Canada?
Well, in Canada, it's an issue because we're a large country. There's conditions of market failure that disadvantage the rural areas. And certainly, we are seeing the digital divides, and it's plural, not just one divide, but many divides, widen as the accessibility to higher speed internet is affected by where you live and the kind of connection types that are available to you.
Well, both the federal and the provincial government have promised better broadband. How well are they doing in bridging that digital divide?
So far, it's slow. Sometimes it's steady. It's a very regional issue. That's why our research is very focused on regions of Ontario and of Canada. And at this state, we are behind countries in Scandinavia, South Korea, and certainly even behind countries like Chile and Mexico and the Czech Republic in terms of fiber penetration. And that's a real concern as we see the dependency that our economies and our societies have on high-speed internet.
I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like for someone who doesn't live in an area with access to broadband, considering most of us have been working from home or teaching our kids online. What is the 50-10 target?
The 5010 target is a speed target. It's also a quality of service target, as it's referred to some extent in terms of the speed and the data throughput. But it's not being met in some of the major regions and rural areas of Ontario. So my research project's just finished a couple major studies in Durham region, in Halton region, for example. The rural areas of these fairly well-populated areas are receiving 6.1 megabits per second down and 1.5 megabits per second up on average. And this is well below that 5010 target. And so the digital divide doesn't seem to be getting any better, especially when we compare it to downtown Toronto, where you'll have 1 gigabit synchronous connections down and up.
That is a huge gap. And Reza, Helen mentioned how we're doing in comparison to other countries. But in your view, how does Canada's broadband situation compare to other countries?
Well, there is near ubiquitous connectivity to some form of broadband. The problem is the quality of service and the technologies that are used, particularly in very rural areas. In general, we are in the middle of the pack in terms of broadband speeds compared to other advanced economies. But we do have, our prices are some of the highest in the world, both on fixed and mobile front. So, and that has an impact on people with lower incomes. So it's not just a rural problem in the sense quality of service is critically a rural problem. And affordability is particularly a rural problem too, because especially for people that are, they have to rely on wireless networks that don't have unlimited services, especially with COVID, their dependence, even when the network is working, you have to pay these large overage fees. This problem is also, it's not necessarily very far from the urban cores that have more competition. A lot of smaller towns, even in the GTHA area, have very poor connectivity.
And Mayor Thompson, I don't feel right calling you Alan. Just to go off what Reza was saying, what have you seen in your area?
Well, Reza is bang on. It is. It's in all the areas, and I know a few years back when Kathleen, when the Premier of Ontario called all the GTA mayors together and asked what our biggest issues were, I brought up the issue of broadband, and she said, out of the 25 sitting in the room, how many have that issue? 20 of us put our hands up saying, this is an issue that we definitely have. Didn't matter if you were Newmarket, Hamilton, to wherever you were, we all had issues, even in Vaughan, in Oakville. So it is a problem that we have everywhere. For the last two elections, the number one issue that I would say was the biggest issue with my residents when knocking on the door was lack of a broadband. And two is a lot of people say, well, pay for what you have. No, I totally disagree. Mm-hmm. In my area, people are paying the size of a car payment or a mortgage payment to try to have broadband that doesn't work. When you're talking about 1.6 for upload, that's basically when I measure when I'm at home, we have on our website is I'm less than 1 trying to download, let alone upload. And this is a serious concern. The COVID crisis is really showing that.
And I guess, can you just give us an idea of what the price would be when you said it was the price of a mortgage, or?
Well, yeah. For me, between ExploreNet and Rogers that I'm using, trying to work from home, which is both dismal at this point, and especially right now, it's anywhere from $500 to $600 a month trying to get a service that works. When you see that little wheel going around, you're paying for it. And you know, when you reach out to Rogers, they say, well, you're an affluent group up there in Caledon, you can afford it. Well, afford what? You're not getting a service that you're paying for. And with the cell towers that we even have been all oversubscribed with, we even have 911 calls being dropped because the oversubscription now with everybody living from home, kids trying to do their homework from home or doing their schooling from home. It's put huge a tax burden on the system. It is completely failing everywhere. I've never experienced in this past 6 months the amount of dropped cell calls you have anywhere, and it's just because of the oversubscription and lack of service. And with the funding that Bell and Rogers have had, they're trying to put fiber to the towers to prevent this from happening. But this is a bigger issue than just that.
Well, I mean, we've been hearing a lot. We all know about the prices, the housing prices in the GTA in Toronto. But I'm guessing, as a mayor of a town close to Toronto, you want to attract people to come and live there. But if you're having spotty internet service, especially since most of us rely on it for day-to-day things, that probably creates another challenge for you to attract people to move to Caledon.
That is the number one issue that I constantly hear from the real estate brokers is the lack, or when are we going to get broadband? When are we going to get fiber to the door? Because that's really affecting the sale and the price of the home. There's no doubt about that.
And Helen, how has the pandemic, COVID-19, exposed the broadband problem in Canada?
Well, I think once everybody had to work from home, I think this really created, and a lot of people that did rely on cell towers and cell service and use their cell phones as to support their internet at home, everything started to crash. And this is the big thing, is they oversubscribed everywhere. And so basically you have nothing. And this is what's created a huge problem in the immediate areas. And it doesn't matter if it's telehealth, it's education, it's people trying to work from home. It's just a combined everything really showed a huge deficit that we have with it.
And Reza, I want to ask you the same question. How has the pandemic exposed the broadband problem?
Well, you have a lot more demand. So before, some technologies like those wireless towers in rural areas may have been enough for example, just sending emails or simple web browsing. But now people are dependent on it for various reasons. You need more symmetric connectivity, and you need it to be reliable. I was worried, I told your producer, I'm worried about my internet connection. I'm in Richmond Hill, pretty urban area. And so a lot of people are buying two subscriptions from competing providers. So when they're building their own redundant networks at their homes, in a way. And that brings us, I think, to the key questions of speed targets that the feds have set up, the 50-10 that we were discussing. I think what it has really shown is that it's not going to be sufficient. Because you need more symmetric connectivity. If you can actually get 50-10, maybe that's good for a couple of people in the household. But those targets are based on services that providers, suppliers advertise rather than what the actual quality of service that people experience. So I think, and I hope that policymakers are thinking hard about, given what has happened, moving from that 50-10 target to a gig target, which means deploying fiber to all of rural areas in Canada. And this is important in not just in terms of people that have demand for broadband, in terms of economic recovery from COVID. This can be part of the stimulus package. And Canada and a lot of advanced economies did this after the 2008 crisis, and Canada did to some degree. So this is the time to spend money on infrastructure, and building fiber networks has a large construction impact in terms of stimulus. And so it is the right time to rethink the strategy that has sort of incremental strategy of let's increase speeds a little bit, subsidize here and there, and move to more of a systematic approach.
And Helen, I'd ask you the same question. I should mention, I mean, the people at home will see this show and it will be seamless, but we've actually had connecting issues with you. So it kind of feels like it's a good thing that we're talking about them. Helen, in your view, how has the pandemic exposed the broadband problem?
Well, there's been good, bad, and ugly where broadband's concerned during the pandemic. The good is that people are beginning to realize that they can save a lot of money. That's money in their pocket for adopting behavior like telecommuting. The data we've been collecting in southwestern Ontario, Niagara region, Caledon, as well as Durham region and Halton region, shows that upwards of $18,000 a year for one telecommuter in the household can be saved by being able to work from home at least 2 or 3 days per week. So that's the good story. The not so good story is that we are all at home during the pandemic, and we'll probably continue to spend more time in our homes as we get through this crisis and beyond it. And so home-based businesses, which can can constitute upwards of 40% of the households in Ontario, these home-based businesses are really suffering by lack of better broadband and are having to adopt strategies like Reza mentioned of having more than one provider servicing their business and their residential use. And this is costing quite a lot and affecting the bottom line. And then the real ugly is just a falling quality of service during the pandemic. The data that we are seeing in the surveys we're collecting are showing a marked decline in quality of service. Calls being dropped, streaming issues like the one we're experiencing today, and just the lack of maintenance by providers on some of the connections because of the challenges of working during the pandemic.
It can become a thing that creates issues with your job, considering we're all trying to hold on to our jobs, correct?
Absolutely. And also retrain ourselves. So many people are trying to use this time at home to gain new technical skills. All of this skills training, all of the even health and safety education is all online. And so we're also disadvantaging ourselves for the longer term. There's also some environmental benefits that we can see from telecommuting. We've all heard about improving air quality and also the carbon offset of taking our vehicles off the road. Smart transportation apps that make us move more intelligently when we do have to use highways or public transportation. And so I think going forward, we should try to build back better out of this pandemic by paying attention to the role of broadband with regards to employment and the economy, the environment, and the wider society.
And Reza, you mentioned that this is a great opportunity for government to build the infrastructure to stimulate the economy. And some people might hear that and think dollar signs, dollar signs, dollar signs. But what is the economic cost of inadequate access to broadband?
It's hard to measure in the sense that it pervades through all different areas of life, from employment to productivity growth, youth retention. I guess I would be as remiss not to mention this: rural areas generally tend to have an older population. And another thing that COVID has shown is that these networks are dependent on each other. The mayor pointed to the drop calls, but a lot of people are depending on the connectivity for to remain in their households. And so it's not just for attracting and schooling. The kids will find a way of reading the books somehow. It will be challenging, but for people to be able to sustain that quality of life and live independently in rural areas, it's very important for a large part of the population. So it's not, and the impacts feed through. So broadband access is a social determinant of health, and there's studies on this. So it needs to be thought through in a way that's more integrated into other policy frameworks. This has not been the case, and what COVID is showing is that it matters to education, to healthcare. Everybody knew this, but it's changing the policy language around it. Now the key is to changing the policies that reflect that new reality, I think.
It's interesting to think of, for a lot of people, the internet is about connecting online, social media, getting their news. But from what Reza is saying, it can have ripple effects in everyday today things for people. Mayor Thompson, from a practical standpoint, what needs to happen for every Ontarian to have access to adequate broadband?
Well, to me, it needs to be deemed as an essential service. No different than what railway was 150 years ago, connecting Canada. No different than what hydro was 100 years ago. Here we are now, 100 years later, connecting our communities, and as broadband is why it needs to be deemed essential. When you talk about a cost, when you talk about a cost, it's a cost when we do nothing. To me, is if we invest to get us out of the COVID crisis, get us to move ahead as a society, make it as an investment. That's what we need to do. The Bell and Rogers and the major telcos, we can call them out for what it is, but that's not going to solve anything. What we really need to know is it's failed. So what do we do to go forward and fix it? We need the leadership both from the federal and provincial governments, which I do believe are now in line. And we just need to start to work together. There's organizations like what's happened here in Ontario with EARN in the east and SWIFT in the west, and especially in Northern Ontario needs that help as well. And these are the organizations that know how to project manage and start to build the system and invest in building for the future and building this. And this is the best way we're going to get out of a COVID crisis. Rez is quite correct. This needs to be part of the stimulus and investment that we need to be moving forward. But it isn't just the telcos. It's to get the railways that are sitting on miles and miles of dark fiber that we use as backhaul. We also have to bring Hydro One involved as well. And really, there's nobody home in their telecom business right now that's part of Hydro One. And we kind of need them to basically be partners in how to link fiber to the poles to get everybody hooked up and work. We know that cell towers, we know that satellite systems are very costly, haven't yet been able to deliver, maybe on short term, but the long term, the gold standard is putting fiber to the door, and it can be done. We just have to make it as disciplined, just like connecting a highway. We definitely need to have the new road is the fiber road and connecting to communities across Canada. It's the same discussion we're having at SCM as we are at AMO and Roma, which is our key major issue, is broadband, because it doesn't matter what we try to do. Broadband is a part of the issue now, and it's integral. It connects everything. It's the major connector, and that's what we need to go forward with and make this a priority as an essential service.
And Helen, I want to ask you the same question. What needs to be done so no matter where you are in Ontario, you do have adequate access to broadband?
Yeah, I want to touch on two things. One, we haven't mentioned. As a researcher, as a scientist in this area, we need better data and more accurate mapping at a much more granular level so that policymakers who are negotiating public-private partnerships and receiving data in from the private sector have a baseline to be able to not just make those investment decisions, but to monitor and to evaluate the investment, make sure there's the highest possible return to the economy, to the environment, to society. And then the second thing is the leadership. We've seen tremendous leadership from municipalities across Ontario. This needs to continue. Their capacity has been developed to deal with telecoms issues. And I think Mayor Thompson will agree that that has been a bit of a game changer for the province to have those municipalities and the communities themselves in the driver's seat.
And Reza, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add and give a shout out to all the Ontario municipalities that have really, over the past 5-6 years, have helped reshape the federal policies. So both in Eastern Ontario and Western Ontario municipalities have been very engaged in trying to educate federal policymakers about the actual situation on the ground and working with them to come up with innovative models. So it's a bottom-up process, right? It's people on the ground that realize what the problems are, and that data issue is very critical. And municipalities there's a process at the CRTC right now trying to put together a national database of the infrastructure that exists, is in place already. But the telecom providers are claiming confidentiality. And that creates a very big challenge for the municipalities. So they don't know where the infrastructure is, or where they can build on top of it. And that leads to a lot of wasted money, duplication, where the fiber is already there, but you can't access it. So you have to duplicate building it. So there's a lot of efficiency gains that can be made through better public-private coordination. But that's not necessarily feasible, as I think Mayor Thompson has highlighted.
Why is that?
Because they have different incentives. Public sector, private sector, they have to have a specific internal rate of return and to pay dividends to their stakeholders. Whereas incentives for the public sector, for municipalities in particular, because they're closer to the action, and local community organizations, is to improve connectivity, deal with those equity considerations that in markets that provide, they just don't have enough of a rate of return to attract private sector investors.
And
this has to be sort of recognized, that the larger telecom providers that dominate urban centers of Canada, their rate of return outside in the more rural areas is not very attractive for them. So the incentives to actually improve things is limited.
We only have a few minutes left, and Mayor Thompson, I just wanted to see if you wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, no, and I think this is where I follow up with what Rez and Helen both said. Making it an essential service federally and provincially forces these telcos and everybody to share the data, share the information for the greater good of serving our community. Similar to what we had to do for hydro in the past and the railways in the past, this is what we need to do to build our country moving forward, to even catch up and get it and be where we need to be. If we're a G7 nation, we need to show it. And broadband is going to be one of our biggest Achilles heels if they don't figure out how to get in front of it. And at this point, right now, with the telcos, a lot of them have to answer to shareholders. Making an essential service means is, on the long run, their long-term investment will make them more than what they're doing in the short-term vision and thinking. So I really think that's why I keep calling for that essential service. And even at the AMO conferences and FCM, I have been calling for that essential service, holding the ministers accountable to it. They know I'm right, but they won't admit it. But it's something that we have to keep speaking up and pushing hard on.
Helen, we have 1 minute, and I can't not have this conversation without talking about the impact in our First Nations communities. We have about a minute. Can you explain to us what the First Mile concept is?
Yeah, I take great inspiration from First Nations communities who've been working longer than anyone, in some cases, around telecommunications and development issues within their communities. And they reverse the thinking that the last mile, which is the most remote mile for telecoms infrastructure, is really the first mile, and that the first mile should be that last mile. So let the last come first, and let those who are closest to the community, closest to the ground truthing of the data, the input and community engagement process, and those who use broadband, let their needs be heard and guide policy and investment. So that's something that we've learned from First Nations communities, activism around telecoms in Canada. And I take a lot of inspiration, as I said, as a researcher from that.
Thank you so much for all of your time, and I'm glad that the broadband held up for all of us to have this conversation. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it for tonight's agenda in the summer. Tomorrow, a look at Ontario's COVID-19 contact tracing app. I'm Nam Kiwanuka. Thanks for watching TVO and for joining us online at tvo.org. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
The Agenda in the Summer with Nam Kiwanuka is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.